Come the Guardians.
Yeah, I have statistics to back up that we have people that listen.
Mike Schaefer.
Anytime there's sort of a debate as to who can do something, Happer would always put his name forth, for sure.
Husker 24/7 on the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone.
I could be a star.
All right, we're joined now on the hotline by Mike Schaefer, friend of the show, friend of 1620 The Zone. So much a friend that he's driving up to Omaha this afternoon, I think. Right, Schaefer? Hello.
Yeah, I'm currently driving. I'm not even waiting for it to get to the afternoon. I'm driving right now. But I found my wallet, so we don't have to worry about that. I'm safely in my vehicle, so we don't have to worry about that. So just trying to make it easier on the good folks of the crossover.
So you're gonna be a little early, I by my math.
Yeah, I have set up some plans that allow me to not only be early, but stay busy while I'm up in Omaha.
Okay. All right. Schaefer, how was your Arizona spring training? How long were you there? A week, a few days? What was the deal like?
Not long enough. I got stuck in a 6-hour delay on Wednesday flying out, so that cut into my time. I missed seeing the Cleveland Guardians play the Rangers in a game that it would have been me and like 12 other people at, which is real disappointing. A lot of foul ball potential there, but so Wednesday kind of got cut a little bit short, but I was there from Wednesday, and then I got back Saturday. I was in line for the game on the bridge at like 12:58, lined up, got in before the first tip to see Nebraska basketball have yet another just sheer stupid loss. So I feel blessed that the air travel only failed me one direction and allowed me to experience Nebraska basketball in its fullest.
Yeah, if you would have taken a delay, you probably would have taken one coming back, and then you wouldn't have had to experience what you experienced.
I don't know which would have been worse, because like I clearly would rather have been at a meaningful Nebraska basketball game than being at a spring training game, even for as much as I like going to spring training games. But at the same time, like if I'm not there and I'm having to watch that delay or having to watch the game in a bar with probably no sound and just trying not to be a lunatic, that could have been difficult too.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was really a no-win situation there as far as Nebraska just being depressing on Saturday. I think either route was going to lead to the same kind of result.
Okay, so before we get to Nebraska basketball, I need your full evaluation and report on the Royals, who I think you saw during this trip. You sent me a text that Bobby Witt Jr. hit a home run near you. This is fantastic news. What did you think?
Yeah, Bobby Witt Jr. hit a home run. Jonathan India just smashed I think it was Freddie Peralta, but it might have been somebody else on Thursday. I randomly saw the Brewers twice, which was not like a planned thing. It just happened. And I don't remember which starter was which, but Jonathan India like smashed. I swear there was no Statcast, but it would have been like 115 mile an hour double down the left field line. It was one of those where the left fielder knew he had no chance, but still tried to jump for it. And was like 6 feet under the ball because it was that much of a rope of a line drive. So I was already kind of interested in Jonathan India as like a Royals offseason addition. Now I feel like he could be a really interesting piece for that team as a leadoff hitter, the guy that just kind of get on base, taking advantage of the big stadium with a bunch of doubles and maybe some triples. He was a pretty good player for the Reds a couple years ago, and he's not bad. He's just been kind of average since, and maybe he can rediscover high-end form for Kansas City, which I only really care about this from trying to get him for $1 at the end of an auction here in a couple weeks for fantasy baseball.
Oh yeah, you could if you could take advantage. I would do that if you have the opportunity to get Jonathan India for $1. I think it's a good move
for that lineup.
Say it again.
He's going to get 700 bats at the top of that lineup. Vinny Pasquantino is going to drive him in like 65 times himself.
Well, I think that might be worth it for you. Okay, good report. I'm glad you got to see the Kansas City Royals, the American League Central champions of 2025.
I think that's probably accurate. I don't believe it's going to be the Guardians. I think the Twins are kind of a flawed roster, and the Tigers I don't think they have the same magic from last year. So I don't have any problem with that. I mean, I don't really believe in the division as it is, so it could be any of those four. But whoever wins it's probably going to win like 86 games and be a so-so team going into October. But congrats to them in advance.
I'll take it. All right, Schaefer. Diagnose, like, why can't Nebraska be trusted to like do something simple such as play with urgency when their season is on the line at home against a team that is, underneath them in the standings or was underneath them in the standings? Like, why do you think that we've been on the roller coaster ride that we have been on?
I cannot figure it out with this team. I thought early on one of the strengths of it was they had so many role players that if a guy or two didn't show up, you'd have other guys that would be able to step in and cover for it. I thought that, you had the two kind of foundational rocks in Bryce and Gary and enough to build off of it. And now it just feels like each game they're losing, you can kind of pinpoint people just aren't able to show up. On Monday, you had a horrible Jawan game. That if you just get an average Jawan game, you win. If you get Connor Essegian to make a three, you win. Like that was a really tough loss on Monday. And then on Saturday, you get 21 out of Jawan, 21 out of Bryce. The officiating couldn't have been more in Nebraska's favor. Things are just lined up in that direction. You're not playing an opponent that's physically imposing or has a bunch of guys that you're normally worried about. And yet Nebraska, which held Michigan to 49 points on Monday, couldn't get stops in the first half against an average Minnesota team. And then, of course, as we know, late couldn't get the stop after taking the lead twice. And Brennan Rigsby, all of 4.4 points a game and 25% three-point shooter, has the game of his life and hits two go-ahead threes to basically just take Nebraska out of the moment each time. And I look at it, that whole second half was 5 players. Like all of the other role pieces, like Burke was so bad you couldn't play him in the second half. Braxton Mia couldn't be played in the second half. Raleigh Wooster and Aaron Eulis are really, really terrible right now, for the lack of better word. So they had 5 players to play the end of that game. Like it is kind of alarming how it has all just disappeared for some of their role guys, and they look like a team that finds ways to lose and not a team that wins. And the tough recipe for the late of February and early of March where you're just trying to string wins. I mean, they did enough work early in the season. All they had to do was get to 19. And it does not feel like they're going to be able to do that. I mean, I like their chances against Iowa at home. We'll see what happens with Ohio State. I think if they get to 19, they're in. But I think they need the 2 in the regular season and really shouldn't be depending on anything in the tournament. I just don't think you get as much credit for tournament wins as you do regular season ones.
Hey, what you said about the Minnesota performance coming off of Michigan, where they held them to 49 points. Do you lend any credence to the idea that some of what Nebraska does game in and game out is a result of what the other team's jersey says? Like they seem to get up for the big ones and play relatively well.
Team. They're definitely an elevator team, but they're not an elevator team that travels, because Wisconsin, Purdue, and Michigan State, all very good teams, just put it on them and ran away. So I just think they represent what the Big Ten middle is this year, which is like 8 to 10 teams that are capable of beating each other night in and night out. I mean, I don't really think there's a ton of separation between anybody after the top group of Michigan State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan. I mean, if you cut it there, any team that comes after that, and then, I don't know, the end of the conference is like Washington, Northwestern maybe, and then everything else in the other 12 teams there are capable of beating each other. I mean, I guess you could argue UCLA, but I think it's fair to put them in the mix with everybody else. They're a little bit on the higher end, but there's just a lot of average teams in the Big Ten, and it's such a soft bubble that Nebraska, for once, has all the metrics it needs. It just needs to add a couple wins, and that's what's unbelievably frustrating. I mean, you look at that home schedule, and it's easy to find a couple games where it's like, wow, they really gave this thing away.
Yeah. So, official prediction, do you think they'll end up in the NCAA tournament?
I was at 70% Tuesday of last week, and I am at 48% for no reason on Monday today.
Feels like a safe number, given that it's in the I have no idea zone, which feels about right for this team.
Like, I can see everything from big win on Tuesday, followed by goose egg on Saturday or Sunday, which is just should never happen on Senior Day and against Iowa. They have all the motivation in the world. But at this point, if they lose both games, they're out of the Big Ten tournament, right?
Yeah, they still have a chance to like back their way in with if somebody else does something else, but generally, yes.
Yeah, so they've got to win anyways. So I think 1-1 is the most likely of the two results here. That's why they just needed to go 2-3 down the stretch, and they were going to be fine. And of course, Nebraska being Nebraska, it just feels like the reverse of football in some ways, where I guess maybe it's similar, but football, it was like, oh wow, they're 5-1, and then they're not looking to make a bowl game, and they're able to get the win against Wisconsin. Basketball, it looks like they're going to be in the tournament, and then they can't just get any wins at the end of it. You still get to the same result, which is sort of a shrug your shoulders postseason berth. Basketball, NIT, football, playing in New York. I mean, the men's sports around here are just not making anyone swell with pride at the moment.
Schaefer, one of my favorite, aka least favorite conversations of the year has popped up, which means it's another year where a player or multiple players who played football at Nebraska in the previous year have great showings at the NFL Combine, and then we do revisionist histories on their entire careers. What do you read into Thomas Fidone and Isaiah Nair having good days at the Combine? It can't be surprising given their athleticism, but maybe a little bit given their production in college.
The general thing with this is the Combine is something you can prepare for. Like, you can
Yes.
prepare and train yourself to put up numbers. And when you already come in as a Thomas Fidone, where you are a physical freak, this is the number one tight end in the country, nearly a 5-star recruit. He's battled through 2 ACL tears. I think the commentary on his depth as a football player has been way over the top. I mean, he was a solid tight end for 2 years. He wasn't used particularly well this past year, and I thought he played pretty good football against Boston College. And I would have been interested to see what another year of Thomas Fidone. I'm not shocked a guy like that performed well in the Combine, and he has the historical pedigree of being an elite athlete. Isaiah Nair is similar, where this is a guy at Texas that they thought they had absolutely stole a star from the transfer portal. The thing with Isaiah Nair is I watched him on the field. I don't think he's strong enough for the NFL. I really don't. In the Combine setting isn't necessarily going to show that. Show the 50-50 balls where he's getting the ball wrestled away from defensive backs. Show the lapse of mental judgment or the inability to block on the edge. Like, he's a nice player, but the Combine setting isn't going to show you the dog in him. I have no doubt that Thomas Fidone has that. I have a lot of doubt that Isaiah Nair is going to fight through everything to be the 53-man on an NFL roster, just based on what I watched this past year. And I don't mean to take away from him. It's just that we didn't see that version of him at Nebraska. That doesn't mean he can't be a good player in the future. It just means Nebraska wasn't able to get it out of him.
How much of what those guys did or didn't do in college is a commentary on what Nebraska was as an offense last year, right? Like, I mean, they weren't.
I think it's certainly some of that, but at the same time, like, you say Isaiah Nair, and the first thing I see, there's 2 plays, and they're very dramatically different. There's the tremendous catch in the corner of the end zone at the beginning of the season on the 2-minute drill, or the one against Illinois. And then there's the just complete drop against Iowa. It's not that he didn't have chances. He played. He was a starter. I don't know that the offense did him a lot of favors in the middle of the season. I don't know that Marcus Satterfield and the direction of what they wanted to do did him a lot of favors, but I know that he struggled to beat man coverage, and some of that is just his want to, right? He struggled to block on the edge, and again, some of that is want to. Like, Nebraska probably could have done more for him, but there's no question he could have done more for Nebraska too. He was a good enough player that it felt like he had a bit of an underachieving season.
No doubt about it. Schaefer, anything going on in recruiting that I know you wrote something about a 2026 prospect just a little bit ago. Anything we need to know about?
I just as a plug for that story, I mean, I think Titan Davis is a clear number one prospect for Nebraska in 2026. He's St. Louis defensive lineman that they've been recruiting for 3 years, 6'5", 240 pounds, can play inside, can play outside. I think he's got a special career ahead of him, and I think Nebraska has invested a lot of time in him. Titan Davis is definitely a name to know. He's going to visit later this month. And I think Nebraska has really put in the time here, and so we'll see if it's able to pay off. They were the third team to offer. Now he's got near 40 offers. The most recent ones are your Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Colorado, Miami. So he's certainly not under the radar anymore. And this is a guy that, when it's all said and done, could also be near 5-star or 5-star territory. He's that good, and such a huge recruitment for the Huskers.
All right, Schaefer. We'll see you. We'll see you later this afternoon. Did you bring a deck of cards with you, or what are we doing?
Yeah. No deck of cards. We'll figure it out. We're creative minds.
Yes,
we can do this.
We'll have things to talk about. All right, Schaefer. See ya.
See ya.
Mike Schaefer, Husker 247. Yes, up on the website right now. The story regarding Nebraska's recruitment of Titan Davis. That is a good name for defensive lineman, folks.
It is, yeah. Powerful, strong.
Alabama, Georgia, Texas have all joined in on that recruitment, according to Schaefer. And Nebraska's like, please stay away. Please. I don't think they're going to get their wish on that.
Well,
one.
Guys, they said please. Sorry.
So we asked Schaefer about it, and been a lot of conversation regarding it over the weekend. Former Nebraska players' performances at the Combine, Isaiah Nair and Thomas Fedoni, have raised some eyebrows around here. Notice that we're not talking about Ty Robinson, which is good, by the way. Ty Robinson should not be included in this conversation, even though Ty Robinson was everybody's good of an athletic tester as those two were. The difference is why we're not using Ty Robinson as an example as what to talk about what Nebraska players didn't do in college is because Ty Robinson produced. They got everything out of Ty Robinson that they possibly could. According to the athlete scores, Nebraska did not get everything out of Thomas Fedoni and Isaiah Nair. So it's a layered conversation. I want to have it when we return. It also doubles as one of my least favorite conversations of the year.
Oh.
Yeah. It's just
like bottom 5 conversations we have every year.
Yeah.
Go.
Great list. We could absolutely do that. Connor doesn't know anything about wait, that's today, the Oscars. What's going on with the movies? There's
so many great movies.
All the movies are bad. There you go. Just had the conversation again. So let's talk about it. Let's get through all the layers of it when we return, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts. 402-951-1620. We're back after this on the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone. But first, I do have a reminder for you all that this week, or maybe this is not a reminder because this is, I think, the first time you've heard about this. The 1620 The Zone is teaming up with Union Bank and Trust for something new in 2025. We're calling it the Omaha Food Fight. So each of the major stations here at NRG Media are responsible for a category of foods. Us here, the dudes, the men, the meat boys at 1620 The Zone are responsible for steak. So what your job is to go to 1620thezone.com right now, or you can go to 1620thezone.com/Omaha Food Fight, and submit your favorite steak restaurants or steaks in Omaha, and then your suggestions will be used to make a bracket that will go up against all of the other subcategories of foods. Sweet 98.5 is doing pizza. Power 106.9 is doing wings. The Keg is doing burgers. So we're going to try and put up our best against the other 3 stations in the other 3 food categories, and we'll see who comes out on top. But right now, we need your suggestions. 1620thezone.com. Once again, get your nominations in now through March 13th, and the voting on the bracket will start March 16th. It is the Omaha Food Fight, presented by Union Bank and Trust and 1620 The Zone.